one last chance to lock yourself into the NASMARB playoff tournament, and where else would it be besides the track where anything can happen? Welcome to Mayhem Super Speedway and the MSWP 500 qualifying session, our regular season finale and the final chances for some of these drivers to make their way into our playoff field. You know the deal by now. Our qualifying lineup will be an inversion of the results from the Vortex 720, which was our last race, going all the way to Murakami. And there it is on your screen, and then Electro will finish us off, and we'll begin with Mozilla. On the left side, you see the finish from the Race 4, which was the Misfortune 400 last time we were here. Second place, not too bad at all, and we'll see what Mozilla can do to pace the field here for this qualifying session. And it's a 3:17 time, excuse me. Run there by the 66 of Mozilla. And an opportunity for them to lock themselves in. Here is our defending race winner here at this racetrack. That is the 26, the championship favorite. Oh, spin out there from the 26 of Streamer, and it's going to be a slow time, a 3:72 for the 26, who did not qualify last week, and now struggling there on that first time. Already locked into the 1 seed, so really with nothing to go for here other than trying to pick up some more points. That'll bring up Spitzer. 25. That's had a bit of an uneven season. Looked like a pretty good run there, and it is. It's a 3:13 to move Spitzer to the top of the boards. Just a little faster than the 66, and it looked like it for a second there. A little bit of a fishtail going down the backstretch, as we'll bring up Jack Tato, who finished last out of the drivers that made it into the field for the Misfortune 400. And coming across the line, looked like a pretty solid time. It is. It's a little bit slower than Mozilla, but still a pretty solid. Less than a tenth of a second behind the leader. It's a 3:21, but third out of the 4 drivers to compete. Pretty far behind right now is the 26. Here's Jeff Marbin, who has won just 1 heat on the season, is averaging a finishing place of almost 15, which is what they did last time that we were here. Spins all over the place and just getting across the line. The time is a 4:56, but it's a lot better than it would have been if Marbin didn't make it across the finish line at all. That was a disastrous run in what has really been a disastrous season for Jeff Marbin, who it's been announced will not return next season. Not retiring, but for next year at least will not have a ride. Jeff Marbin out of the 24. Here's Steve in the 89. The Malbow machine looked like a strong run there. It is strong, and it's all the way at the top of the boards for Steve, a 3:05 for the 89 machine. Very solid run there. One note for these drivers that are racing to make their way into the playoffs: if you don't make the playoffs, you don't race again. This is potentially the final race for a lot of these drivers if they're not coming back to their teams or if they're moving teams during the offseason. As you see that run there from Winks, and it's going to move into 3rd place. Steve could be one of those. We just mentioned Jeff Marbin will not return to his team. And so if Marbin, who is right now running in last, doesn't qualify for this race or doesn't win this race, then they're done after this. Here's Sal in the 2. And that looked like a good run. That might beat out Steve, and it does. Oh, how close it is. 1/1,000th of a second. Excuse me, 1/100th of a second. Might have been 1,000th of a second if we go that far. A 3:04, though, is going to put Sal into the lead. And this will bring up Earl, who qualified second the last time we were here, but had a disappointing 11th place finish. Earl is right on the cut line, and Earl's going to move to the top with an extremely fast run, a 2:83. That's the time for Earl in the 33. Very impressive run there. As we look at Prime, who has really continued to struggle after winning the first race of the season, has really been downhill since then, and we'll see if they can recover here. This looks like a pretty good run for Prime. It's been a while since Prime has been toward the top, but they'll move into 2nd place with the second sub-3-second time. It's a 2:96 to move in between Earl and Sal, and a very strong initial qualifying run there from the 8, who will try to, really recover to make their way into the playoffs, which they're locked in because of their win, and maybe make some noise in the playoff tournament. As this looks like a okay run. It's going to tie with Mozilla at a 3:17. That's towards the bottom. Right now, Streamer and Jeff Marbin have run the two slowest laps. And here's Quillo. Quillo did not qualify, finished 20th the last time that we were here. Now sporting the colors of the race's sponsor, the MSWP, and just getting across the line. It's a 3.93. Nearly another fatal mistake for Quillo, who's really made a lot of mistakes towards the second half of the season, hurting their chances, but gets across the line. It's the second slowest time, but it's good enough to at least give yourself a chance, as Woodpecker will stand in. Woodpecker won the pole when we were here a little while ago, finished 4th, runs a strong lap there, and will slide into 4th place, a tie at a 3:04 with Sal. They're all pretty close right there. Sal, Woodpecker, and Steve are all within 100th of each other. Bring up Neptune. Finished 11th when we were here, averaging an 11.57 average finish. As that will be a not exactly spectacular run there. 3:28's the time. That's the slowest of the cars that have not been significantly slower. That was Streamer, Quillo, and Jeff Marbin. But then besides that, nobody else slower than the 11 there, as that'll bring up Lemon Drizel. Drizel, one of the championship contenders. Obviously, anything can happen, but Drizel is really one of the main competitors, a lot of people think, to Streamer. And Drizel will settle in right behind Steve, a 3:06. Obviously, you know by now, 2 qualifying laps, one from the inside line, one from the outside line. And their average time will determine where they are lined up for tonight's race. Oh, big spin there, but able to recover and a come across the line, and Confetti with a 3:33, even with this really big moment there in between turns 1 and 2. Confetti, a 3:33, honestly still in it, even though a big mistake made there. Pretty fast car, it seemed, as Bloodstorm in the 86 will come up. Those classic flare cars, and across the line, looks like a good time. In the middle of the pack, I guess, after it shows up on the screen. A 3:20, right behind Nugget and ahead of Jack Tato by a 100th of a second. And here is Oak in the 48, finished 6th, averaging an average finish of just under 10th. After a really bad start to the season, Oak has turned it on, has a lot of speed here, and is going to move into 2nd place. A 2:86 for Oak. Will slide in behind Earl, and Oak has really started to turn some heads. I feel like I mention it every time that we have a race. The bad start and the incredible comeback, as Murakami in the 4 will stand in. Really turned some heads, but wasn't quite able to get it done. Almost pulled out an incredible underdog victory, as they will slide into 4th. A 2:99. Very impressive run from the 4. Murakami trying to make some waves here, as Electro, who won last week, locked themselves in, will make their way to the starting gate, and they're going to fall. They will not finish the 93. A disaster. Oh, man, and a lot of twists and turns there. Rolled over a few times. And Electro is in a lot of trouble here. It's a good thing that they locked themselves in last time. Just one car unable to finish. That is Electro, last week's winner, as Mozilla will go again. A little bit of a bobble at the end. And ran the exact same time. A 3:17, which will obviously average to a 3:17 after running 2 of the exact same lap in terms of time. That average time will be in the lead now, as Streamer's going to run a 3:37, average it out to a 3:55. And move into 2nd. Wow, yeah, just took a hard turn to the left. Streamer needs to figure that out before we get to the playoffs. Otherwise, that might be a very disappointing tournament. Chance to lock our first car in. Is it Spitzer or Mozilla? The answer is that it's going to be Mozilla. Average time of 3:22. after Spitzer ran a 3:31 on that lap. And so Mozilla is in, currently leading on the pole now, as this will bring up Jack Tato, and Jack Tato carrying a lot of speed, comes across the line, a 3:04, will average the time out to a 3:13. To the top of the boards goes Jack Tato, and now locking themselves into this regular season finale. Here is Jeff Marbin. Marbin looked like a pretty solid run there, and Jeff Marbin ran a 3:04. Very impressive time from Jeff Marbin. Averaging it out, though, just to a 3:80, which means you're still looking at potentially some trouble for Jeff Marbin here, who may be done, may not be able to make it to the regular season finale. Here's Steve, who for a brief moment was the leader at the top of the boards. Runs a 3:26, not good enough to be to the lead. It'll move into second place. You saw a little bit of a bobble there, and it looked like off the ground came the back wheels. 3:16, that's the average time. As we'll bring up the 13 of Winks. And Winks is going to flip and will not get across the line. A DNF for Winks. And that time currently sits at a 5:06, which makes the average time a 4:11 and would lock Streamer in. Things just got very interesting for Jeff Marbin. And Sal looks like a pretty solid run. Yeah, it's a 3:17, and it's going to move to the top of the boards. 3:11 is the average time, better by 0.02 of a second going backwards. Sal is able to move up the boards. They are in. And here is the 33. That looked like a good one, and it is. A 2:95 for Earl will average it out to a 2.89. Up to the top. Here is Prime. Prime trying to gain that momentum, as we said. Spins at the end, but after they're across the line, and an average time of 2:99 moves into second place. So Prime is in this race and looking like they may actually have a chance to do some damage here in what is, wouldn't call it a tune-up, but more a get-right race before the playoffs begin. And Nugget is going to get in after a 3:10, making an average time of 3.14. Still sitting at Jeff Marbin at 3:80. And Winks with a current average time of 4.11, as this is Quillo, and Quillo runs a 3:15, averaging that time out to a 3:54, enough to get in. Does better than Jeff Marbin, whose average time was 3:80, which means that Quillo, who ran a 3:93 the first time, was going to have to better it. They did. That'll bring up the 43 of Woodpecker. And their time is going to move into third. They run, the second car to run the exact same time from both lines. Mozilla did it at a 3:17. Woodpecker does it at a 3:04. Not going to be a fastest time on either lap for Woodpecker, but very consistent and good laps run. As the 11 of Neptune comes across, that was a slow lap. It runs at a 3:53. Still good enough to get in. As we work our way further and further down. The time for Winks has gotten a little bit slower, as Lemon Drizel is going to flip. He's not going to make it across. And Lemon Drizel is now below the cut line. Jeff Marbin is in this regular season finale. Ooh, as you can see, Lemon Drizel almost flipped back onto the wheels, which could have maybe made a chance to actually get across the line. That didn't happen, and now he's below the cut line with Winks. As Confetti is going to come across, all you have to do really is make it across, and you're in at this point. If you are Confetti, that's the case. The time was a pretty good one, a 3:07. Settling in between Mozilla and Spitzer. And with 4 drivers left, we're going to move to Bloodstorm at a 3:20 on the first lap. This lap will be run at a 3:04, and up to 4th place goes Bloodstorm, averaging that time out at a 3:12. And here's Oak. Solid time for Oak, and Oak will move all the way up to a tie right now for first. We have a tie atop the pole with just 2 drivers left. Earl in the 33, Oak in the 48. They are both at a 2.89. Meanwhile, here's Murakami, and Murakami is right up there as well, runs a 2.98. A little bit faster by 0.02 of a second on that lap than their first. And that will bring us to Electro, who's going to be up against Lemon Drizel. One will be in, one will be out. The answer is going to be that it is Electro out of this race. And it ends up being a slower time than Winks. So Lemon Drizel, despite failing to qualify on that second lap, is still going to get in with an average time of 4.18. Winks in the 13 is out of this race. And Electro in the 93, after qualifying their way in, guaranteeing themselves a spot in the playoff tournament, will not qualify here. And we're going to have a race-off between Earl in the 33 and the 48 of Oak to decide who is going to be our pole sitter. As you see there are the two that failed to qualify. Winks in the 13 ran a slow time. Obviously didn't make it. The 5.3 is in red because that's a DNF. And Electro failing to qualify as well. We can give you an inside line and an outside line winner. That's going to be 1 championship point for Earl, who ran the fastest overall lap at a 2.83. And then Oak at a 2.93 ran the fastest other lap. Group 1 and Group 2, we don't know which one's going to be which. Earl will either be in Group 1 or 2. Oak will be obviously in the other. Whoever is the 1 seed is going to take on Nugget and Lemon Drizel. The 2 seed, the loser of that race-off that we'll have, is going to take on Steve and Jeff Marbin. Group 3 is going to be Murakami, Jack Tato, and Streamer. And then Prime, Mozilla, and Quillo in Group 4. Group 5 is Woodpecker, Neptune, and then Confetti as well. And then the final grouping is Sal, Bloodstorm, and Spitzer. So we will have a race-off for the pole before our race later on tonight. And then it all comes down to one final race, one last opportunity to prove that you are one of the best and make your way into the NASMARB playoffs. It should be a great one, should be fascinating, exciting, and definitely some drama to come later on tonight. So please stay tuned, and we hope that you enjoy that race coming up later on. But until next time, I'm Ricochet, and you've been watching NASMARB on MSPN.